5 years ago this week, I walked away from a $400,000 a year job and I moved to the Dominican Republic. My wife, she had some interesting thoughts about that. And honestly, so did I. So 5 years later, I'm gonna share with you what I've actually learned. I spent 21 years with one company in the United States. You've heard of it. It's called Progressive Insurance. Never sold it. I was in claims the whole time, dealing with accidents and injuries and settlements and all that stuff. In 2000, I was a claims adjuster making like 25 grand a year. And I was good at it. So I accelerated pretty quickly. I got promoted a couple years later, promoted again. And then in '08, moved to Boston from upstate New York for an even bigger promotion. It's where I met my wife. We worked together for Progressive in Boston. I saw her, I claimed her, the rest is history. Okay? From '08 to 2017, I went all in at trying to get to the next level, which was the executive pay band. Comes with a bunch of equity, big salary, big bonus, everything. I applied over that time probably 8 or 9 times for different jobs, and I was always the second guy. We went this way. And my overlords, or bosses, told me, you know what, you need to diversify and do this. So I moved laterally into different positions. If you're in corporate, you know this game, right? Go get the experiences while the person that got promoted for some reason didn't need those experiences. Come on. I remember one time they came to me and said, hey, Jamie, we got this department. This is like 2012, 13, before COVID, before anything like that. And they're like, it's virtual. We don't know what to do with it. It actually was formed post '08 when they let go of a whole bunch of people. And rather than letting go of everyone, they kept like lower talent people and they put them in like a makeshift virtual organization. Now, a few years later, they're like, it's there. We don't know if we want to keep it. So we need someone to kind of go in, manage it, see what they can do with it. And then we'll see what happens. They said, you're going to do this on a 6-month rotation. I'm like, rotation? So then at the end of 6 months, I have my job back. They were like, maybe. I'm like, well, what happens if the department isn't kept after 6 months? I mean, like for me, what happens to me? We'll figure it out. Not exactly the most confidence-inspiring statement. So I did what anybody would do in that situation. I took the job and I actually turned it into a destination position. People were taking demotions to come work for this organization. Check, right? Look at this dude. He takes a department that's failing and makes it a destination for top-level employees. Time to promote him.
Not yet. Go take this gig. I know your wife's about to have your first kid, but this job will put you on a plane 45 weeks a year. It's lateral, but it'll give you great experience.
Why didn't she need experience before she got promoted? And she was doing the job I did before the last job I did, not even at the level I was doing it. Yeah? If you understand this, by the way, from a corporate person, drop I get you down below. If you've been given this dance, go get this experience. It's be good for your career, good for your development. If you've gotten that, drop it down below. Oy. But so now I'm faced with, do I want to travel 45 weeks a year while we're having our first kid, leave my wife home alone with a kid? It's a lot of stress on our family. And of course, I made the right decision here. I took the job. And for the next 2 years, I was gone almost completely. I saw my kid on weekends. I saw my poor, exhausted wife on weekends. In fact, our first kid slept so poorly in the beginning part of his life that it was just easier to sleep on the floor of his bedroom than it was to put him down, go to bed, and come back. We didn't believe in the whole like sleeping with us in the bed with us. I don't know if we would do that differently today. This is 11 years ago. But we just thought, you know what? No, own room. So on weekends when I got home, I was sleeping on the floor in his bedroom for the first few months. He eventually got over it. Thank God. Which takes me to late 2016. I applied for, the 8th or 9th time for an executive level job. I'm in Boston. This job is in Michigan. Never been to Michigan before, and there are 12 people applying for the job. My overlords felt I had done enough. I got the position. So in early 2017, I moved my family to a place we've never been. We sell our house in Boston, we buy one in Michigan, and we're off and running, right? Problem is, about 30 days into that, I'm miserable. Wasn't the job, wasn't the company, they're all great. But I realized at this point that I was seeking something. I'm approaching 40. I think this happens to a lot of guys around this age. And I felt like wherever I'm supposed to be, I'm not there yet. And for me, at that time of my life, I thought that the position I was craving was the solution. I mean, look, if you're in corporate, you get it, right? I'm a manager over supervisors and a team, or a big team, but you're still kind of in it. You're kind of line level. You're not working on strategy. You're looking at what your boss is doing and like, that's where my talent belongs. I'm just as smart as my boss. I could do his or her job. So for me, getting to that level would solve everything. But I always say this was the part of my life where my authentic being met my ego and said, hey, look, ego, you've been driving the ship. Position and income and everything is what we've been going after. And now this dude is miserable. My turn. And when your ego gets challenged, it doesn't just step back. There's an epic clash inside. And so the next 2 years, I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I didn't realize how depressed I was, how down I was. In fact, my wife even said, remember, I was traveling 45 weeks a year. I get promoted and I don't need to travel. She's like, look, you're here physically, but you're not here. And here we are in Michigan, away from everything, bottom. Now, look, I realize a lot of people are going to hear a guy say bottom at making 400K and not be able to relate to that. And I can't help you with that. All I can tell you is millionaires and billionaires have taken their own lives. While the money in that position and the equity that would secure my future was awesome. It made things easier day to day, no doubt. It meant nothing to my soul. I think if you're over 40, you probably get that. I think the further beyond 40 you are watching this right now, you totally understand that. Whether it was 50 grand, a million, 200 grand, whatever it is that you make or made, you totally get it. If you're still on that drive toward it, I get it. It may not make sense. In 2018-19, after a couple of years of being just down, it was time to do something. I joined entrepreneurial networking groups. I read books on different methods of making income without a job. I went out and started buying real estate. I had this money, may as well deploy it. I started a networking group in the real estate space. I said yes to hosting a podcast, which actually grew. It created a business opportunity for me, my own entrepreneurial networking membership community and event company. I had all these irons in the fire, saying yes to everything and anything that wasn't my job. And it got to a place where I had a job, a family, 43 units of real estate I was managing most of myself, a local real estate networking community that I hosted, a full-time podcast that was growing. And here I'm worrying, like, my bosses are going to see this podcast at some point, and then a paid membership and event community that spawned off of that. If the first lesson I learned in the 5 years since I left my job is that money doesn't matter when your soul is broken, the second one was, don't ever tell me you don't have enough time to pursue your dreams. Ask my wife. I was everywhere, doing everything. Probably other than being a parent at that time, but at least I was home at night to do bedtime with the kids. I had to grind to build something new because I had spent my whole life building toward what I had. And when you want it, truly, you figure it out. Over the next couple of years, things evolved. I sold my 43 units and I partnered with the syndication firm, started raising capital and doing marketing for larger deals. All the money I sold those properties, I invested in the deals alongside our investors, and that money to this day is still sitting in those buildings. Now, to be clear, that doesn't pay me. Every dollar I've taken in has gone right back into those investments. And if you know anything about investing as a limited partner, the returns come toward the end when those properties sell. So call that my retirement plan. The membership community started to grow a little bit, and the podcast was starting to hit some milestones. And in February of 2021, while COVID was still live, my wife and I decided we were gonna go spend a month in Florida. She flew down, I drove with the dogs, and the 2 to 3 days it took me to get from Michigan to Hollywood, Florida, my mind was able to decompress, think, get some clarity, and make a decision. I think I need to quit this job. The thing I really anchored to was this vision, and that was, I want my family and I to be able to travel for as long as we want, wherever we want in the world. And I knew I couldn't do that with this gig. I also knew that I couldn't maintain doing everything, and either all the extras needed to go or the job needed to go. So for me, I know what we had saved. I knew the potential of what I was building. And I was really clear. It's time to go. When my wife and kids flew and arrived in Florida after I did, I drove a few days, they came later. I said, babe, when we get back from Florida in a month, I'm gonna quit my job. You wouldn't believe what she said next. She said, okay. Ooh, I am getting emotional here, Dan. This is a woman that is staying at home as a mom. I was able to afford her that, who, you know, we have a lifestyle, we have a mortgage, we have bills to pay, we've got all this. And not for a second did she question whether or not I should go. She believed in me, believes in me. And boy, I'll tell you what, when you marry right, I put my notice in on March 13th, 2021, exactly 21 years to the day that I started with the company. And my last day was a few weeks later on April 9th, 2021. Wow. Now look, we didn't plan on coming to the Dominican Republic. Our plan was to be able to travel. We wanted that freedom, but I mean, I just quit a job. I think I can do something with all of this stuff I'm doing. I think we've got about a year's burn rate sitting in an account if we need to touch that and dive into it. I got some real estate, but it's not really paying me. If you know anything about real estate, you're reinvesting it back into the property. The real money in real estate typically comes when you exit or refinance. So the next, 6 months was just spent making sure to prove the concept. Can I not have a job and survive and thrive? It's amazing what happens when you lean into that belief, when you actually listen to God. Actually, that's a lesson I learned about a year earlier that I'll share at the end of this video if you stick around. So when you hear that voice, God, the universe, or whatever, telling you, compelling you, you can't understand why, but you know it's that voice, you gotta take action on it. And quitting and everything I've done since then, I really do work to listen to what may feel like an unreasonable pull towards something. And it all came from one specific event. I'll share that later. After I figured out that, you know what, hey, we're actually doing okay. We figured out different things. Other opportunities opened up. I learned of this concept called vacuum prosperity. What it says essentially is when you create space by getting rid of what you have, it gives room to place the things that you truly want or that are truly aligned. So we started thinking about where do we want to go? We booked a month in the Dominican Republic. My wife's from here. It was late COVID, late 2021 into early 2022. And we thought, what a great way to get away. It's winter time. We love DR. We've been coming here for years. My wife and I have been married since 2010. First time I came to DR was, I think, 08 or 09. And while we're here, we're watching our kids interact with what would be their cousins, but they don't speak the same language, but somehow they're communicating. They were almost 7, almost 4 at the time. And my wife and I had this moment where we said, you know what? Maybe we need to come here for a while. And in August of 2022, we committed to coming for 1 year. It was going to be an adventure, a story we could tell ourselves, and then maybe we do it somewhere else in a couple of years. But this is our new pattern, right? Travel whenever, wherever we want. But here's what happened in that first year. We built a network. We found a culture that vibed with us. Like me or don't like me for this, we weren't seeing here certain books in schools with our kids. There was no confusion about what they are, boys. That ideology and all of that, while my wife and I would both say, we don't care how people live, we certainly didn't want anyone imposing any lifestyles that we don't want our kids to be exposed to without our permission. And we were seeing this trend in the United States at the time. We also noticed that our schools had no active shooter drills. Whereas in the US where we lived, we had at least at the time 3 school shootings around us. And since then, there have been 2 or 3 more in that general area where we lived in Michigan. We even had a scare at our school where a 10-year-old kid called in a live active shooter. It turned out to be a hoax, but when you saw the response at the school, which wasn't far from my house, you could feel the terror and the pain that families go through that have to deal with these active shooter issues. We had medical issues that popped up, and we had to learn how to navigate that. We had built systems and processes in another country whose systems and processes are different than what we're used to. Scary the first time, but now we know what to do the next time. But we committed to a year. We had flights booked around August 31st, 2023 to fly back to the United States. But before we went, we decided, let's take a quick trip down to Medellin, Colombia. And while we were there, 2 weeks before we were set to return to the United States for good, we had this epiphany. In DR, we've got the kind of support that allows my wife to be a mom, that allows me to be an entrepreneur, that allows us to be parents and present for our kids. In DR, our kids are outside. We felt a sense of safety that we felt was lacking in the United States, and anxiety about day-to-day life. In DR, we could feel a connectedness with people. In fact, in a jarring way. People just kind of show up to your house. We weren't used to that in the US. I wasn't used to that in the US, other than my upbringing in the 80s and 90s. That's what it was like. We saw a lifestyle our kids were living and an ability for my wife and I to be part of that lifestyle that was beyond what was available to us in the United States. What was scheduled play dates became random stopovers. What was 3-4 hours a day of housework became time to read books at bedtime with the kids and not have to worry about all the plates that are building up in the sink. Now look, we obviously have the ability that allows us to afford a nice lifestyle. But I remember sitting in a condo in Medellin, an Airbnb, my wife and I talking about this, laying in bed as our kids were playing in the other room, and her saying to me, maybe we should do 1 more year. This leads me to the 3rd lesson I've learned since quitting my job 5 years ago. And this one's specific to being an expat, and maybe even more specifically to why Dominican Republic has been so great for us. There are 2 types of movers that come to a place like DR. The first one is the one that I thought we were when we first came here. And it's the one that you see always advertised on YouTube and everywhere else. It's the dial it down, simplify life, maybe minimalist sort of objective when you move to a country like DR. Chill, beach life, and a tank top and hanging out. Retirees resonate with that. Digital nomads resonate with that. Maybe like a pre-retiree, late-stage career person resonates with that. And many others do as well, don't get me wrong. But what we discovered is we're actually the other type of mover. And the reason we stayed was we didn't realize this type of mover was possible, not only in another country, but more specifically in the Dominican Republic. You know, I'm like many people maybe watching this, like you've heard of DR, you know it's got all these all-inclusive resorts, don't leave the resort, it's unsafe. Many call it a 3rd world country, even though it's not. It has 3rd world elements, but the country itself is actually developing. So while I knew minimalists and dial it down folks moved here, I didn't realize growers moved here too. Let me explain. As a W-2 guy, as an employee at a company, I look back now and say like, there was no value placed on progress. Value was placed on work, like busyness. The busier you were, the more valuable you seemed to be. Maybe that's why I didn't get promoted so many times, because I like progress, I like results. But there, everything was just like, let's summarize it in an email, get together, have a meeting. And I made the joke that every year there would be an objective, a key metric that we needed to achieve. And being there 21 years, I was able to see this cycle 3-4 times. Like whatever that objective was this year, we'd nail it, and then we move on to the next objective the next year, and it would come around. around every 5, 6, 7 years to the same objective we started with 7 years ago. I believe they call that a circle jerk. When I quit my job, I realized the value placed on dollar productive activity, like how much my time was worth. For people that are entrepreneurs or business owners, like you get that from the beginning. You're nodding your head big time right now. I don't believe it's almost like if you're not a parent, you don't know what it's to be a parent until you have the kid. You can't simulate it. I don't believe you can simulate the difference in efficiency and how you view that from employee to entrepreneur or freelancer. There's just no way. So as I'm learning as a freelance entrepreneur in the United States and a building business owner, that time is truly money. I'm looking at all the things that we spend our time on in a day and I'm like, we need to outsource this stuff. You know, my wife is taking care of everything. Of course I want to support her. But when you've got like house cleaning, shopping, we had a pool, made a lot of money. We had a pool maintenance, lawn care, dog grooming, car cleaning, and everything in between. You're looking for ways like, how do we get rid of all this? How do I make sure that like I can be on task as much as possible? At one point recently, I added this up. If I were gonna have a full-time person in my home taking care of laundry, shopping, cooking, cleaning, if I were to have dog groomers come to my house on a every other week or every month basis to take care of the dogs, shave them, do all that's needed for them, if I were gonna have landscapers, pool guys, live in a premier top-notch neighborhood, it's going to cost me a lot of money. The full-time housekeeper alone is probably 60 grand a year. Here you can do all of that for a quarter of the price. Now that might mean that you're spending $8, $10, $12,000 a month if you are a grower. But that same $8, $10, $12,000 a month parallel to what you would have in the United States, in a similar community with similar people that you want to surround yourself with, having similar support, access to similar amenities, is $30,000 or $40,000 a month. And after we were here for a year, I realized like, wow, I can really be focused on the task at hand. I can grow my business. I can grow my brand. And I can do all of that without watching my poor wife struggle as a mom and taking care of everything in the house. And, you know, I want to help out and participate. She can handle everything kid related. She can manage the household versus being the labor in the household. And that's when I realized that DR is actually a growth engine for somebody like me. Then I started looking around and I met person after person after person. To be clear, mostly Dominicans repatriating that are doing the exact same thing. There's an arbitrage they get. They can get the massive lifestyle they would love to have in the United States at a fraction of the cost while still supporting everything local. You're hiring local labor. You're paying local restaurants to go out to eat. You're shopping in local shops. You're paying 18% tax on everything that you buy, which is the sales tax down here. So the government's getting their slice out of you as well. My wife was freer as a mom. I was freer as a businessman. And that's what this culture, this society provides me. I'm not in it. I'm not here to try to save as much money. I'm here to grow as much as I can. And with that growth, I hope help those around me, my community, my family, my friends, etc. It's not a budget move for us. It's an organization move. Now, I want to tell you what nobody tells you about living down here, but I do have one request. If you haven't done so already, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. Be along for this journey with me. I share a lot on this channel that I hope helps anybody that's thinking about quitting a job to moving abroad to the Dominican Republic specifically. Here's the honest part about making that move. The first year is hard. It's survival. It's learning things. The first time your kid gets sick at 11 o'clock at night and you're wondering, oh my God, where do I find the doctor or the pediatrician to help? Your anxiety is heightened. You're wondering, did I make the wrong decision for my family? So you start talking to different people. You're WhatsApping friends that you've met. They direct you to the right person. That person's available for you at midnight. You drive to them. Everything's settled. And now you've got that arrow in your quiver. I know what to do if my kid gets sick late at night. I know where to go, who to contact. We had a kid committed to the hospital with dengue fever, a mosquito-borne illness. Very scary. How does the insurance work? How is it going to be in the hospital? Can my wife stay with him? Can I stay with him? We got through that, and thankfully we figured it out, and we know now what to do. My wife had a car accident in that first year. She was rear-ended. We know what to do. The challenge is when these hardships, which is just life, no matter where you live, hardships pop up. When they pop up in a country that you're not used to, the instinct can be to flee, go back to comfort. When really all you might be doing in that scenario is wasting the lessons, the learnings, and the structure you've just built to handle that situation or something bigger in the future. You know who, you know where, you know what. Today, our kids are fully bilingual. They spend more time outside than inside. Somebody asked me the other day if our kids love it here. I said, yeah, they like their life. They're kids. They want to play PlayStation, and they do, but when they're done, everything's outside. Kids climb the fence into my yard to play with my kids, or vice versa. They're in all the different sports: soccer, tennis, baseball, gymnastics. I want to get them into taekwondo or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I just don't want them crawling on the floor to beat people up. It's weird. As an expat and now an immigrant living in the Dominican Republic, you manage the transition and then you thrive. And who you know, who you're connected to, the bigger your web, the better. In 2025, we decided this is where we're gonna be full time. We sold our Michigan home and we bought this house that we live in today. So now you might be watching this as that guy that I was back in 2017. I'm doing all right, but I feel empty. I feel miserable. And I thought about what would I say to the guy back then that would have helped him not spend 2 years depressed and instead become the version that he started to become in 2019 and 2020. Number one, identify what you love. Not what you love that can make money. Take that part out of it. Just what you love. Do you love Legos? Cool. Do you love red and yellow kites? Awesome. Do you love custom watches? Great. Whatever it is, identify what you love. And then just start leaning into whatever that is and saying yes to everything within it. Are there watch clubs, sales guys, shops locally, content, all of it? Just lean into it. Say yes, 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 yes. Understand that if you're in a job for 10, 15, 20 years, you're like an 8-year-old kid who's been restrained for an hour. The moment you let him go, he's gonna wanna go wild. Your inner kid, the kid you suppressed years ago and said, we gotta get practical because the world told me I should become a claims adjuster when all I wanted to do was be an NFL broadcaster. That kid was constrained me for 21 years. If an 8-year-old is let go after 1 hour is gonna go wild and we can agree on that, what do you think's gonna happen after 21 years? It's okay to go crazy. Say yes to a bunch. Be wild. Pivot, 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 pivot. Try new things. You didn't know you like sushi until you tried it once. It's the same thing. Try and fail. Ideate, iterate. Just have fun learning and growing and being a creative spirit. That's what I would tell my 2017-year-old version of me. Now, I wanna tell you all about following the voice of God, or the universe, or whatever it is you want to call it. I do have one request. If any of this resonates with you, living in DR, moving to DR, investing in DR, I'd love for you to check out our inner circle. The link's down below. Incredible membership community. Would love to have you a part of it. About a year before I quit my job, I had this feeling, this sense, very strange, this almost voice, and it said to me, you should reach out to Mike. Now, Mike was a guy I went to high school with. I even, when we graduated, went to college with him, but I lasted 2 weeks at college and came home. He stayed for the entire 4 years. Mike and I stayed in touch for probably that year, little by little, and it just kind of faded. I might have seen him once since then, Facebook interaction here and there, but probably for at least a decade, we had zero interaction with one another. And this voice, this energy kept saying, just shoot him a DM on Messenger. Say you're thinking about him. And I pulled it out one day and I was about to do it. And I was just like, this is weird, man. I haven't talked to this guy in 12, 13 years, whatever it is. Like out of the blue, like, hey, Mike, man, like, been thinking about you. How you doing? So strange. But I thought about it for like 2-3 days and I was gonna, I should do it. It kept coming up. It was just like this pressure, this push. And then I was in a parking lot about to go into a grocery store at my place in Michigan. And I get a message from another classmate of mine, Josh. And he says, hey man, Mike just hung himself. I couldn't believe it. Look, I don't know that a call from me or a message from me would have changed anything. I'm not at all going to assume that, but I'll never know because I didn't listen to that pull. I didn't listen to that voice. And I have this feeling, something that I directly said or that I directly like interpreted, but just this feeling from that point forward, almost like a warning. Like, hey, when you hear that, when you hear me, here's your lesson. Follow it. When I made that drive from Michigan to Florida, that energy, that voice was there. It really was. And in that moment, I guess I just decided, this is in retrospect, but to surrender, to allow, to be. And when my wife reacted the way that she did, cool, calm, collected, no stress, unnervingly no stress about me throwing this career away, I'll tell you what, all I can think of is that's got to be the voice of God. Sometimes the path is right there in front of us. It's clear. We know. You might know, watching this right now, like I know, but it's going to create discomfort. It's going to create upheaval. It may not be easy, but when you just have that voice, I don't know. Maybe Mike will be around today. Look, this is the part of the video where I usually point out another video that's on point as like a great other video to this one. I don't know what that is. I'll have something up here that YouTube will choose. Celebrating 5 years. 5 years, and amazed by all that's happened in that 5 years. Appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next one.